The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. Do you have a little one and need a stroller for your next Disney vacation? Then Kingdom Strollers has the stroller for you. They've got a great variety of well-maintained strollers that fit any need. Go to their website and check out the City Mini Double, the City Mini Single, or any one of their wide selection of great strollers. They also have crib and bedding rental as well. During every one of my Disney vacations, I can't go a couple of minutes without seeing a happy young guest in a Kingdom stroller that is followed by a parent that knows they made a great stroller rental decision. Want to see how Kingdom Strollers can help you? Go to their website at kingdomstrollers.com. That's kingdomstrollers.com. This is Mr. Chris, and I love a good cup of coffee anytime throughout the day. In fact, I like my coffee hot or cold, brewed in my single-serve pod coffee maker or at a French press. I even like my coffee both iced and even cold brewed. Regardless of how I decide to enjoy my Java, there is only one Java that I truly enjoy, and that is Expedition Roasters. Not only do I love their traditional brews such as Route 66 Tire Fix and Dark Side Roast, I love their flavors such as Bob Slitter's Brew, Charming Chocolate Cherry, and Happily Never After. To me, their coffees are never bitter, and I enjoyed every flavor I've ever tried. And did you know that Expedition Roasters also carries some of their flavors in decaf? They're perfect for that afternoon cup. You also have to check out their different teas as well, which are great hot or iced. When you're ready to enjoy the best in pop culture-inspired coffee and teas, check out expeditionroasters.com. Are you looking for a travel agent who has over 20 years of experience to take care of your Walt Disney World vacation, or your Disneyland vacation, or your Disney Cruise Line vacation, or even those non-Disney vacations? Contact Mickey Adventures by Brandi. Her services are fee-free, and she can take care of all the details for you. You know, things like ADRs and fast passes for you as well. Mention the show and get a Disney gift card if you book a 3-night or longer Disney vacation with park tickets with her. Contact Brandi at mickeyadventures.com. That's BRANDI at mickeyadventures.com, or give her a call at 774-400-3541. Coming to you live from our studios on the East Coast and in the Midwest, it's the Behind Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently. Hey everybody, good evening. It's Mr. Chris. How are you doing on this fabulous Monday evening? I say fabulous because, let's face it, it's Monday and we don't have to go through this Monday again. But I'm really glad you all are here tonight. And, you know, for those of you who are watching us live, it would be epically awesome if you would like to go ahead and post a comment or question as we're talking today. Interaction is the name of the game here. We'd love to have you join us in that fun. While at the same time, I'm looking forward to this conversation tonight, and I hope you are too. So here's the deal. So tonight, got a special guest, someone who's not been on the show before, and she is our feature travel agent sponsor from Mickey Adventures. It is Brandi. I'm going to bring Brandi on the screen right now. Brandi, how are you doing?
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Very
glad to be here.
Oh, glad to have you here. But I also wanted to say that not only is Brandi an awesome travel agent with over 20 years of experience, and we're gonna basically cover questions and comments about using a travel agent and some Disney travel planning trips today, but she's also a former college program cast member. And I'm really excited to talk to her a little bit about that, because I am sure there's a lot of things that have changed over the years since she was a cast member. And I would love to hear some of the things that she has to say. And maybe she'll share a story with us or two, I might even add. So first off, Brandi, why don't you go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself and some of the things that you do as a wonderful travel agent.
Well, I've been doing it for about 20 years, and I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm New England area, but I worked for 15 years in the storefront travel agent since right out of college, and traveled all over the world, went to Europe and cruises and Alaska and Disney, of course, a million times. But um, really lots of different places. And over the years, just gained a lot of experience through trial and error, really. And about 6 years ago, I started online, uh, basically booking trips online for family, friends, and past clients. So
Sure.
that's what I do now.
So it's really started out kind of small, especially dealing with just family and friends and that kind of how it.
Yeah, I mean, really, over the years with the brick and mortar spot that I was in, I mean, I dealt with lots of clients. There is, and then when I kind of transitioned into the online, it was a lot of my clients from there. So I still, I've become friends with a lot of them. They're not just clients. I went to one of their baby showers this year. So that, they're friends and I've gotten close to a lot of them. So, and
It's kind of interesting you mentioned the brick and mortar travel agency. I remember, I know it sounds so weird where you have to go back and say you remember an actual travel agency in your local town. And I'll never forget, you know, I was flying out to the East Coast to see friends and stuff like that. And the whole internet thing and buying tickets online, wasn't necessarily something that you did. You went to a travel agent.
no,
And
and 20 years ago when I started, people didn't have the internet like they do now. So
no,
it wasn't even an option to book online. It was, so it's transitioned quite a bit over the years, for sure.
I mean, I remember, and this is even kind of before the days of AOL, if anybody wants to, age yourself a little bit, but using like CompuServe, you're able to actually,
Hmm.
book airline tickets on CompuServe, which back then was text based and you had to know how to use the system. It was actually a connection to what was it called? Sabre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I use actually quite a bit now. It's still in existence.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. That's pretty impressive. So
hmm.
I mean, the thing is that travel and travel agencies and travel agents such as yourself has the whole dynamic of how trips are booked. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and throw George's coming up here for a minute. He's like, hey, he's looking forward to this conversation. Because he thought travel agents were kind of long forgotten. And I will say that I don't necessarily think travel agents are long forgotten. I think that they are in some cases underutilized for people, especially those who are new to Disney vacationing. Um, so let me ask you this, like, not to, this is going to sound like a negative type of thing, but I'm curious, what do you see as like some mistakes that people do when they're trying to plan a trip and they come to you looking for advice? And do you have any ideas, tips to try to help avoid some of those pitfalls?
Well, sometimes like a cruise, for example, if you book a cruise and I had someone come to me and said, I've already booked my flights, I just want to book the cruise. Well, his flight on the last day was at 8 a.m., which you
Oh,
won't get off the ship, and he couldn't change it because he had booked it on Expedia or something for the flights. So that's something that a travel agent can help with, that there's flight restrictions.
the detail,
And
a little bit.
yeah, and even with Disney, even if you're well versed in Disney and you know Disney, the I've been there's sales reps for Disney that help travel agents. So whenever there's an issue that arises, you can call them and say, I have this issue, can you help me fix it? I've known my Disney sales rep for 15 years.
Oh, that's cool.
And when I walk into a room at a sales training, or I just had a training to update me on the latest in Disney, and he came up to me and hugged me. So that's the relationship I have with him. So if there's someone I didn't, this didn't happen, something's wrong, I can call him and say, can you help me? I mean, he actually lives in the same town as me. So it's kind of, that's the relationship of a travel agent, some of the small things they can do for you. So it doesn't matter how many times you've been to Disney. There's some people who just want me to book their trip. They don't want me to do the fast passes. They want to do all that, and that's fine. But
Sure.
if there's ever an issue, they can call me and say, Brandi, can you help me fix this? And, and then there's different levels. There's other people who don't want it. They want me to book everything and fast passes. I woke up early on Thanksgiving to book someone's fast passes.
Oh, because I'm
So,
right at that 60-day point.
mhm. So it was Thanksgiving Day and she didn't have to wake up. I did, so that's part of it. So it doesn't matter kind of how seasoned you are. There's a lot of things that I can do either behind the scenes or just when you need it. So it's not, every level of traveler can use one.
I think that's actually something. I think that is something that is very noteworthy because, like you said, seasoned or not seasoned, even the whole fast pass thing. Let's face it, there have been times where my wife and I would wake up like literally minutes before the window would open, and I'd be upstairs here in my office, cracking open my laptop and stuff like that. She'd be downstairs on her computer, and we would try to, see if we can get all the different fast passes that we really wanted to. And fortunately, we've been pretty successful most times. Not always, but it's a big pain in the rump. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. And I remember the days of trying to get, calling in for dining reservations.
Mm-hmm. I used to do that for clients all the time.
I mean, there was a time where we had two cell phones, we had two house phones. One was my office line, and of course the house phone. Trying to call in to get that coveted ADR over at Cinderella's Royal Table because we wanted my daughter to have that experience when she was little, and you know pressing redial here, listening for a busy signal, pressing over here, having it go, and waiting, and then of course, oh wait, well keep going, keep trying over there. We'll see what's going on. That was such a hassle. But yet those are things that you will take care of if guests would like for you to do that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's different levels. Some people want to do that because it's fun for
Yeah.
them. And then I mean, there's even people who tell me this is the type of food I like. These are the characters we like. You just book whatever. So
Oh,
there's a lot of people would cringe at that because they want to plan everything, but there's all different levels. So it doesn't matter what level you're at. I don't charge fees at all ever. It's the cruise line or Disney who pays me. So it's never going to cost you any extra.
so
Um,
there are times that you will actually help curate someone's trip very closely down to dining reservations if they want that sort of detail.
and
Wow.
even like with fast passes, I plan it. If someone, they're on multi days and they want Splash Mountain and Big Thunder, and I usually plan those together. So obviously, if one's not at 9 a.m. and the next one's at 4, what are you going to do with all that time? And those are right next door to each other. So
Right.
I try to plan that so that you know you minimize your walking as much as possible because
Oh goodness. I know how that goes. That's been a mistake that we've made in the past, is that we got all the ADRs we wanted one year. We got all the fast passes we wanted one year. But the problem of it is that we did so much back and forth walking. And it was all at the Magic Kingdom one time that we did it. It was like
yeah, that's the hardest one. But even Animal Kingdom, I mean,
Animal Kingdom, you can wear your
that one to me is just I don't know that one because it's always so hot. So I feel like the walking takes 10 times longer. So it's if you are able to plan it a little bit better, maybe, it minimizes the walking.
it's funny because I don't necessarily know if it's the heat at Animal Kingdom or just the fact there's no breeze because
Probably.
there's so many trees. You don't get that nice, I'll say tropical, breezes that you could get elsewhere, especially around Epcot. But no, I know what you mean. Danny says the same thing. He doesn't like Animal Kingdom because it just gets just so blazing hot there, and for some reason, Pandora when it's hot, just not really the place you want to be. I just
No. It's like Toy Story Land. No shade.
Oh, yeah, no shade, but fortunately they have put some shade artificial shade over the queue for Slinky Dog, which is good, but it's really effective, during the 11 to 1 type of time frame because it's above you type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if it goes down to the sides, you're still going to get toasty. But yeah, I will say that it is very, very hot in that particular area. I can only imagine that. Well, I can't really imagine. In September, when Danny and I went to Galaxy's Edge, it too was a little bit on the hot side, but for some
Mm-hmm.
reason, it didn't seem as bad as Toy Story Land. That's just my 2 cents. Well, we've got this one person, and she's really awesome, and I'm a little bit, a little bit biased, but my wife asks. She's like, "Do you suggest certain parks for certain days for a less crowded experience?"
Yes, I mean, obviously, Magic Kingdom, not on a weekend, typically.
Right.
Typically. Now, that's not always the case. But that's usually, and I do sometimes go by crowd calendars. I look at that sometimes. Couple websites have those where they kind of estimate it. So I'll look at that. I mean, I use that for my own planning. I have a trip in April. So I look at that and I look at that for clients too. But try to, and sometimes there's, if they always say the myth is that if there's a early magic hour, that park's going to be crowded, which isn't always the case.
Right.
And that's not always. So that's, I do plan it with crowd calendars and try to avoid certain parks on the weekends, I would say.
I knew
Because
that. I knew Magic Kingdom and weekends tend to go hand in hand with crowds, or at the same time, the myth. I say myth because it's really hard to prove this. The idea that if a park has late magic hours one night, go there the following morning because chances are it'll be a lighter crowd.
Mhm. Or
And
even like a lot of times I've done, like I usually spend 2 days in Epcot and one day World Showcase, and World Showcase I usually outside of food and wine, but which is kind of changing now because I think Epcot's getting more and more popular. But a lot of times I'll do World Showcase on a weekend because I've noticed that it's not typically as busy unless you're doing food and wine.
I was going to say the festivals have some impact on that, but like you're right, food and wine the weekends are quite crazy. At least from what I've seen, what other people have seen, pictures. Even Chris, our local communications director, has kind of demonstrated how crazy it could be on a weekend. Um, I think right now Epcot is also. I think though it's going to start feeling a little bit more congested, at least in the Future World area because of the construction and stuff like that. But generally speaking, Epcot is such a cool place to go when it gets busy in general because it's such a big place. Um, so I'll have to ask this though, for some of your own personal preferences. Are you the kind of person that yeah, I can't talk tonight. Are you a park hopper kind of person, or do you kind of do one park a day type of thing?
I generally do one park a day. That's usually I plan my ADRs and then I typically spend the day there, do my fast passes. And, I'm a person who usually goes for 8 nights, 7, 8, 9 nights. So I actually just went in August, we're opening Star Wars weekend for which I didn't plan it that way, but that just so happened. And I had to leave 3 days early because of the hurricane, because I thought it was going to be bad, but it
Right.
wasn't.
Well, a lot of people.
Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I typically don't. That's one of the last times I've ever done. I haven't done that in forever. I'm usually longer, so I spend one day at World Showcase, one day at Future World, one day, multiple days at Magic Kingdom. So I typically don't hop, from park to park. I pretty much just stay in one park. But that's just me. I know
Yeah,
a lot of people who pool hop too. So
very true. Very true. Let me ask you this though. Are you the kind of person that stays there the entire day, or do you have a strategy of taking a little time away from the parks in the middle of the day, especially in the hot seasons?
no, I mean, we don't show up typically at rope drop. It's pretty much 10 a.m., 9 a.m. And we spend the day, and sometimes we'll do the night show, sometimes we won't. Um, that kind of thing. I typically go with my mom a lot. My husband's not the biggest fan, although it's Star Wars, he's can't wait to go. But it's so I typically spend the day. We don't usually go back and we usually do spend a pool day,
Sure.
but I don't go back and forth typically. That's just the way we've been doing it.
Yeah, I will say that we do it a little bit differently, only because we found out that our kids were kind of the deciding factor in some of those plans. Found out my son likes to take that break. I found out I like to take that break.
I
Um,
probably should try it that way because I run myself ragged some days, and my mother always says we always say we're going to do this, more spread out, and we just pack it all in. So I need to, and I'm trying every trip now to do a tour. We started that a few years ago where every single trip we do a tour, one of the tours. So I've been doing that, and that's a fun break,
what
from
would have
everything.
been? Oh, I'm sorry. What would have been some of the tours that you have done? Which ones do you one? What are some of your favorites, and what are some of the ones that you would suggest?
Well, I did the Behind the Seeds, which that one was the first one we ever did, which was cool.
Okay.
It's a nice little tour at the land.
Mhm.
And then last year, the year before, Mom and I did the Christmas tour,
Oh,
which I
right.
loved, which starts in Epcot before it opens in Future World, and in the countries. And you kind of go to Germany and then to the and into different countries, and they kind of go over the different Christmas traditions that this country has, which I thought was really neat. And so they went through a bunch of different countries. We got to go backstage, and then they went to the the warehouse where they make all the decorations.
Oh,
That was
cool.
the highlight. That was it was just tables and tables of wreath making, and they were making everything at that point for the following year.
Oh, wow.
And we went down certain aisles, and they had Wilderness Lodge and Yacht Club, and they had all the decorations in these humongous bins, and that was just great. We had to wear, a hard hat, and we could only go down a certain aisle. But that was great. And then we went to the Magic Kingdom. That was the only part I didn't like because it took 45 minutes for us to get through the line. And we stopped at the base of the Magic Kingdom at the tree, and she basically just told us about other traditions, and we left. And that part I thought they could have either done more or kind of skipped that. Um,
Seems like it would have been a little bit of a letdown after going backstage like that and so on.
yeah, and we didn't go backstage at the Magic Kingdom. We went through full security. So, and then we went to the Wilderness Lodge, and the tree there is just unbelievable. And we got hot apple cider
Cool.
at the Wilderness Lodge, and they told us more. I mean, they gave us a pin, they gave us treats. That was a cool tour. We did that a couple years ago. Um,
I will
and
say,
then
I was going to say, I will say the Wilderness Lodge, in my opinion, has got to be one of those trees that you have got to see.
yes, it's just beautiful. And then last year I did Carrying with Giants at the Animal Kingdom
Sure.
with the elephants.
Elephants. Hmm.
And they had actually a naturalist from Africa that came and talked to you about poaching and what they're doing. And then you learned all about the elephants. And you're still obviously far away at their elephants, but you're in a backstage watching them. And you learned all about the mom and the dad. And it was crazy. We got name tags that had little elephants on them, and it was made out of elephant poop. And they refined it into like your name tag, so they make paper products from it, and that was really neat. So that was last April, and then next April I'm doing Keys to the Kingdom. So
And I hear like Brenda's actually mentioning that she loves the Keys to the Kingdom tour. Some neighbor friends of ours did it, and they said it was absolutely wonderful. George actually in the past has done the Epcot Segway Tour, which I don't believe they actually offer anymore. But
I would never do that because I'd be skin knees and on the floor. I have no coordination whatsoever.
I'll never forget watching a group of guests that are on the tour, and basically they'll go through Future World. I'm sorry, not Future World. Go through World Showcase before World Showcase was open to guests, and you just see this pack of Segway scooters, going through and stuff like that, and they make it look so easy to do that sort of thing. I think I would be like you. I'd be like, down on the ground, going, "That's it. Go on without me. I'll just walk really fast." But yeah, I just like when they used to do like the little Segway demonstration try in I think it was Illuminations West. They had the little,
Yeah, I remember that where they used to, you could try it out. But yeah, no, my nickname is Grace. So
hello, Grace, that type of
yeah,
thing. Yeah. That was my mom's nickname for me at times. It's like, yep. Hey, Grace, how you doing down there? Thanks, Mom. Love you too. Sweet. So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to trying to do another tour. My wife and I, with my kids, we did the behind the scenes tour and really absolutely loved it. And what was really cool was that we did the last tour of the day, and we were supposed to be with another family, but they didn't show up. So it was supposed to be like a half an hour ish long. And our cast member guide was fantastic. And we ended up being there for over an hour. And she answered all of our questions, and we took a lot of pictures. It was just such an amazing time. I love going through the land. It's such a wonderful experience. And I'll go ahead and say it: the best cucumbers ever that they let us sample that was done by hydroponics. That was pretty cool.
I didn't know. I don't know if they've ever done this before, but did they before decorate the land for Christmas?
Mm-hmm.
That's not new?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I'll be the first one to admit. And the reason why I say that is because this is the first time that I recall anybody taking pictures of living with the land with Christmas lights. Now, that doesn't mean that it hasn't been that way, but it's been a long time since I've been there for Christmas. I mean, it's been like 6 years or so since my daughter was a senior in high school, back 2013. I guess that's longer than, yeah, because it is 6 years. And so the thing is that I don't know, but I saw a lot of the pictures that were done by different people like Mouse Planet and the Disney Nerds. Both of them had a lot of great pictures and videos of living with the land done up with Christmas lights, and it was really, really cool looking. In fact, some of the pictures were done in such a way where the lights actually almost looked like lightsabers, even though I know it wasn't supposed to be that way. But I had Star Wars on the brain. But so George is actually helping me out here. He goes, his wife says yes in regards to Christmas decorations. They just made it better and better. And I think that's really cool. I guess that means I'm going to have to go down during Christmas again sometime in the near future, especially if it's getting better and better.
Yeah, I typically always go down in the fall, and my last 2 trips have been in April. I don't know. I'm kind of going through the Christmas withdrawal though. I need around Christmas. And a couple years ago, I left the 23rd of December. So I miss that time. It's so pretty.
What do you prefer? I'll call it the spring break trip, even the March, April timeframe, or do you prefer the fall timeframe?
I prefer the fall. The only reason why I'm even going this April is because I can't wait until the fall. Because I was supposed to go in November, and my husband had surgery, so I couldn't go. So it's like I'm jonesing to go. So I could have booked it for December, but I can't wait. I want to go.
I know how that goes. I really, really do. And it's like we actually had a spring break trip planned, and we were going to go to Disneyland this time. The only problem of it is that flight costs were so blankety blank expensive. It was going to cost us more for the plane tickets than it was going to be for our hotel room.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, my son, I don't want to say dropped a bombshell on us a little bit, but he told us something from the heart. He goes, I really don't like going during spring break. He goes, there's a lot of things I like to take care of, and there are things that the teachers make us do over spring break where we don't really get to relax. He goes, and so I don't want to go on a week-long Disney vacation in spring break when he's got to come back and get homework done and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, thanks for letting me know. But for this time around, it was mainly the cost that was prohibitive. So we're going back, sometime in the summer. We're trying to figure out all those dates and everything else like that because we got to figure out what's going on with my son and his camping endeavors. Because last year, my son probably spent more than 30 days camping outside during the summer. That was his stuff with scouts. So
Yeah, we're campers too. We camp quite a bit. So I love camping.
Do you camp at Fort Wilderness by chance?
No, I've never done that. I live in Massachusetts, so it would be with a camper 24 plus hours.
Ooh.
So,
and some of that's not terrain.
Yeah, and a lot of people do it. It's just for us going up to Maine and other areas, which is 5 hours or so, depending where, that's long. That's enough for me. I can do that, but 24, we haven't done it yet. We've talked about it. We actually spent last April when I went with my husband, because he's a huge camper. We went to Fort Wilderness. We rented a golf cart and we spent the day. We ate at Trails End and we roasted marshmallows with Chippendale. And we weren't camping there. We just spent the day, and that was so much fun. It makes you want to go. Camping there is a lot of fun. I just can't get my camper down there 24 hours. And it'd be more because 24 hours for us is driving. So with a camper, it's going to be considerably more.
Yep. I understand that, especially after caravanning with some friends of ours, and they had their RV behind us. It was quite the Griswold experience. It was really cool though. Wendy was also just saying, kind of going like along the lines of the whole Christmas trip idea. She's like, it's so magical. Snow on Main Street, or as it's more properly called, Snope. I love the snow on Main Street until it hits the lens of my camera. And then Mr. Chris does not necessarily remain happy because that stuff's so hard to get off. George basically says, he goes, what can I say? We just returned and the Christmas party overlays were ridiculous. Space Mountain, insane. TSO music. TSO. Why am I drawing about TSO music and light show?
Tomorrowland? Wow. No.
Why am I drawing a blank on a TLA? I know TLA is left to the right. Why am I going blank on a TLA? Anyway, and he's like, wow, the fireworks and light show in the castle were jaw dropping. I saw some of those, some of the videos from the show that's on the castle, even the one that Disney Parks blog did, and that even it was raining and it still looked fabulous. Oh, thank you, George. I was going
here I am thinking Tomorrowland.
Yes, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Thank you, George. You know darn well I was not going to be able to sleep tonight unless I knew what that was. Also want to just give a shout out to Dusty. Hey, my friend, it's good to see you. Glad to have you here on the live feed. He also goes along and says Fort Wilderness is amazing. It takes him 22 hours to get down there from the region, Northwest Indiana. So yeah, 22 hours. That's about, driving a camper. I could say that it takes about 22 hours from up this way, because normally without one, about 20 hours. And that's, me, Captain Slow, driving. Because with, what can I say? I don't like to get tickets, but yeah, I could see where it would take so long. You have to figure out whether or not want to do it. And also, if you're towing a camper of some sort and you're going through the mountains, let's face it, that is like the most unnerving thing in the world. Sometimes it's unnerving even if you're not driving a camper, but that's
a couple years ago, the Kangamangas is a highway in New Hampshire, and Um, I believe it's in New Hampshire, but we were going camping there, and I was gripping the handrails because there was mountain and just, whew, and my husband kept saying, we're fine. And I could tell he was nervous too, but I was like, yeah. So I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's nerve wracking, and especially if for some reason you try to take a shortcut somewhere like through the mountains of some point. We did that one time with my father in North Carolina back in the early '80s, and we almost got ran off the road by a semi. Then on the, that was a little bit too close for comfort. I'm like, no, that's it. That's it. When I get to be big and and grown up and be able to drive like dad, remind me not to do this route again. So
And the problem is too, is you can't just pull over anywhere.
no,
Like a lot of the parking lots, you can't, you know, just turn around with a
yeah,
camper. So it's
no.
very nerve wracking when you pull off the highway.
And what's worse is like my friends, I had to be careful where we stopped and this, that, and the other, because he had an RV, but was also towing a trailer, enclosed trailer for his motorcycle. And so it made it, not went from big and long to big and longer. So you have to keep these things in mind when you do your road trip. Excuse me. So it's really kind of interesting. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's switch gears here for a moment. Let's talk a little bit about your experiences as a college program cast member. Now, first off, I have to ask, like, where were you going to college at that time? And was it one of those things where you planning on becoming a part of the college program, or did it just kind of, it was something that you heard of, you thought you'd give it a try, and it turned out to be awesome?
I was going UMass Dartmouth, which my Massachusetts accent is probably chopping that up, but it's right near where I live. It's on the south coast of Massachusetts. But I was going there. I had no idea Disney even had an internship. I saw a flyer and I flipped out. And I went to, they had like a seminar, and then they did interviews immediately after. And I was in an interview with a couple other people. And I was so excited. I was just, I was praying that, I mean, I was young. I mean, we were in college. I was praying that I'd get in. And they even took you aside because at that time they had like a size restriction. Your size could not be bigger than 18. You had to be 18 for women or lower. And I was right at the cusp of that at that time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. And all summer I dieted because I was flipping out because like, if I don't fit into the costume. But, you could, at that time, you could kind of request what you wanted to do. And I requested attractions, number one, and merchandising, number two. And I got neither. So I got a letter in the mail saying I was hired for food and beverage.
Okay.
So, which made sense because I had worked at Dunkin' Donuts and a bunch of food places before. I had no experience in merchandise, and that kind of thing at the time. So I went down there and lived at Vista Way, which is in the mid 90s was where you lived. And I didn't have a car. I relied on transportation by Disney or whoever they outlet to do
Yeah.
that. And I had four roommates, and the one that was actually in my room was from my same college, which never happens.
Oh, wow.
Was from UMass Dartmouth, and they're all, it's funny because my roommate she worked a great movie ride. So she was the guide and acted like she was the good guy at the great movie ride. So she was researching her lines for weeks. And my other roommate was at Alien Encounter. So she was before Stitch came.
Oh, okay.
And then another roommate, my last roommate, was a performer in the Toy Story Parade. So she was good friends with the trolls. So so that was, and I ended up getting, I worked at MGM right across from the Beauty and the Beast stage show.
Okay.
There's, it was called Rosie's Red Hots at that time. Now it's Sunshine Marketplace.
Right.
And it's still kind of the same now. It's slightly different. They have a fruit stand, like a quick service spot and then ice cream stand. And it was kind of similar back then, but back then they served hot dogs and other things. They don't serve that now. But I mainly worked as a cashier at the quick service location. So it was an incredible experience. We took one class a week for Disney, and we learned about all kinds of things, what they did with their marketing, what they did with their customer service, and went through traditions, learned not to point and do the 2-finger salute, kind of, and that kind of thing. So that was it was an incredible experience. I would recommend it to anyone. I've got my first travel agent job, actually. I didn't have any sales experience at the time, and she said to me, "Oh, you did the Disney program?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, I've had good luck with people who've done that, so I'll take a chance on you." I solely got that job and multiple other ones because of that. So it's great for the resume.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have a friend of mine who will be going down to Walt Disney World in January as a college program cast member. And she and I sat down a few weeks back, right after she got the offer. And she's like, "I'm trying to figure out what I should do with this." Because she was also waiting for another type of job offer that was definitely more in her, I'll say, her proper career path, because she just graduated college. And I said, "Listen, regardless of what they have available, regardless of the assignment that they give you, one, Disney never looks bad on a resume, period." And I said, "Two, take advantage of all the different types of classes that they have available to expand your horizons, because it's that extra training you will not get anywhere else. You never know what's going to come of it in order for you to be the person with the advantage for the next job." And I think a lot of people don't realize there is much more to the college program than, one, living really close to Disney, two, working for Disney, of course, and three, having the option, of course, going to the parks when you want. You would think that it was I'll say, dream come true. But there's also a lot of people that don't realize, yes, you're still working. It is a job. They expect results. They expect you to be on stage, on time, in costume, and to be the person that you want to be. It's different from a cast member perspective and a guest perspective. I was wondering, first off, these are the things that I haven't built in my mind. Am I hitting it right from your perspective?
It was hard work. I 12-hour days, if not more. It was, and I remember on Thanksgiving, I was standing and there was a 1-hour wait at that time for just my line for the person at the end to get to the front. That's how busy it was. So it was nonstop. I mean, on your feet. And I didn't, I remember a handful of times I went to the parks, but I was so exhausted most of the time that it was, and it was just exhausting, so, but it was great because we took the classes and they were all different about every thing you can think of, the customer service and everything. And then I actually went to an executive meeting of the top of food and beverage for MGM of that time, Hollywood Studios. And that was really cool because they talked about different things they were implementing. And so that was really neat. I mean, getting to go backstage too. I went down the utilidors and backstage at Epcot and down below the Magic Kingdom. That was one of the, and we, at that time, you had kind of free reign. I mean, because this was back in the mid 90s.
Okay.
So there was no restrictions about where you could go. I mean, I went to the character area many times with my girlfriends, and we would always come up right by the castle. There's a door that goes down to the utilidors. And that's where we would come up. And every time I see that door, it's like, oh, I remember coming up through and you'd see all the characters backstage and chit chatting with each other. And not on stage. So it was some funny things you saw and some things were like, whoa, but it was just a great experience. And I would recommend it to anyone because it's great.
What would you probably say would be the biggest life lesson that you walked out of the college program with? And I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot with kind of a deep question there, but it's one that I ask only because obviously your time. I mean, how long was your stint as a cast member?
I was August to January. Not long enough. I actually have a girlfriend who worked at Splash Mountain for the entire summer and Christmas season. I wish I had done an extended one like that, but I would say, the customer service that's what stayed with me, and Disney, this might be 2 minutes of your day, but to the guest out there, you may be changing, that may be something they look back at for years. And it was 2 minutes of your day to please them, but it's something that could make a huge impact on how they, see things through Disney. And that was one of the biggest lessons they taught us, that to always be on stage and always, cater to the guests. And it's what Disney's always done. So it's just, that's always stayed with me, and always the two finger, I
I,
still
I
do that.
I kind of do that myself, even still. It's just one of those things where you kind of know about it, and then you realize, yeah, it just makes more sense. Um, did it change your perception of how you see Disney as your preferred vacation destination, now that you've been backstage and so on?
No, it probably heightened it because I know what goes into it, at least back then. And I was backstage a lot when they were putting together the parade or they're getting ready to go out on stage with the parade, and the massive amount of people that put that together is mind blowing. So it just enhances it because I know a little snippet. It was only 6 months of my life, but
Sure.
I know a little snippet of what goes into what they do. And being able to see downstairs and just everything, from just, someone like me who's a cashier to the head of food and beverage. So it was getting to meet multiple people like that. It was great, and I even did couple nights I would do special functions and there were celebrities there, and we got to wait on a bunch of celebrities, and the Pointer Sisters were singing on the Beauty and the Beast stage on one of these special events, and I remember hearing them, while I'm making ice cream. That's where they put me that night. So that was incredible, and having these celebrities, and you were trained that you can't, flip out and be like, oh my god.
You can't be
Um,
that girl all of a sudden.
yeah, yeah, as I'm shaking and giving, one of the guys that came up was a huge football player at the time, and giving him his ice cream. And, at that time, it was a event, so they didn't pay for anything, obviously, but handing him his ice cream, I was like shaking, trying to get it to go straight because this guy's, a huge football player. So that's one of the things that I'll always remember is those
So,
little events.
I've heard the stories about cast members in the events, and it's like a really awesome thing.
Yeah. No, and even like I mean, there was one time where I went around with my manager, and she's like, we're gonna help some of the characters because there was a problem with some of the characters, and we were doing that, and I had to run through an area because I was in the wrong costume. I had a pastel costume. I'll have to try to find a picture of it because you guys will laugh. But it's this big flouncy skirt, and it had these big poofy shoulders with pastel stripes on it. And
And you said it was the '90s, so I could picture that.
yeah, it was. So I actually had a choice when I showed up and I was going through traditions. Which I think this was rare, but they said you can either work there at Sunshine Marketplace or you can work at Sci-Fi and be a greeter.
Okay.
And for some reason, I don't know why I chose the marketplace, but um, it was overall, there was so many little snippets. I'm probably forgetting a lot of them now, but it was, meeting the celebrity and the executives, and it was great.
When it came to, I mean, obviously this is one of those cases where you're going down there, you're obviously rooming with multiple people and having to obviously learn to live with other people. Where were you in your college program, study wise, like year wise, when you actually did this? And did it have an impact? Did your age, or I should say college experience, have an impact on how you were just able to, I'll say, live even more so on your own because you're, far away from home and so on and so forth? I know it sounds like an odd question, but for some people it's a big, big change.
I was a junior, so I don't know if my mother would agree with me, but I thought I was fairly mature for my age. And I turned 21 when I was there, because I remember I went out and bought wine coolers, and I thought I was the coolest thing since sliced bread, because I just could drink a wine cooler, and I was in Disney. And um, so that was, I thought I was a junior. So I think that did impact me, because I wasn't 18, right out of the bat, or 19. I
Right.
was a couple years, and really wanted this as a resume builder, and plus I love Disney. It was a natural fit. But yeah, I definitely think, depending on the age, I mean, and I feel I'm fairly independent even back then.
Sure.
So I wasn't that was easy. And I can imagine kids who aren't as independent might have a hard time with it, might
Right.
struggle.
Right, because you're actually there, you're on your own, you have to pay rent, you have to pay bills, you have to pay for food. It's not like you're in college where you have a meal plan, so to speak. You have to pay for transportation, except for the transportation that Disney provides specifically. And back then, you didn't necessarily have Ubers, which was a
No.
which obviously now we consider that to be a relatively, well, it's definitely more affordable than a cab if you compare point A to point B type of thing. And back then, that's all you probably had if you had to go somewhere else, was either bussing it, cabbing it, or stealing someone's car. Or
My roommate actually had a car, so we would go to the market together right after. Usually, I call it the market. It's the grocery store. I don't know what other people call it, but we would go after, and I'd have to, you're in your costume, and you have to take off your name tag and make sure there was no, like, we had very strict rules about that. And so we would go afterwards. But the shuttle, I remember running through. The shuttle that we picked up was right behind Tower of Terror.
sure.
That's where the cast member was at the area at the time. So I remember running, even though I wasn't that far, the entrance to it, just bolting to get the shuttle to the housing complex, to Vista Way. So yeah, no, that was a rough transition, because I didn't have a car. That was, and my roommate did, but she didn't always work the same hours as me, even though we were in the same park.
No, I could see where that be be of a scheduling issue, so to speak. I can see where that. Kathy was kind of asking. Now, you mentioned earlier about some of the different classes that Disney provided, which was, I'll say, Disney business type of classes, or the business of Disney. She was kind of wondering, did you take classes, or like possibly other classes while you were in the program as well?
No, I kind of didn't realize that you could even, at the time, my school would allow you to get credits for just doing the internship. I didn't know
Oh,
that until afterwards, so I missed out on that part. But no, I didn't take classes. They didn't even offer that as an option back then, where you could take an online class, because there was no online classes back in the mid 90s.
yeah, it was
So
really not online.
yeah, I mean, we took that class, and if you missed more than, I think it was two, they kicked you out of the program. So you could not miss more than two classes, and you got a grade on it. So I went to every class. I didn't miss any, but there were some people who missed one and maybe two, and then I was like cringing every time we walked in, thinking, are they going to miss it? Because they said they would, you'd go home. So they're very strict about it. At least back then they were, um, and it was once a week, and it was, So yeah, I don't know about now. I mean, I imagine maybe they would allow you to take a class, but back then they didn't.
And I've heard of some of the strictness that the college program cast members have. I mean, there's definitely rules. So it's like all the responsibilities that you are bestowed upon as an adult, but also you do have a strict code of conduct that you have to live up to as a cast member, as a college program cast member, living in, well, quite literally under Disney's roof. You have to follow Disney's rules. And
It's
it's
kind
not,
of like, I'm sure for some kids it was a real test into adulthood because
oh,
you really have to be disciplined or you are out.
and I think that's something that I like to think that college program candidates, and I'm referring to those that are, let's say, that are going from high school into college, that say to themselves, you know what, I would love to do the college program. They need to kind of keep those sorts of things in mind. The one person that I talked to about the college program, this is when she was just getting into college. She's like, I would love to do that. And then she said this, because I'd like to save up money for college while working at Disney. I'm like, TV timeout. I know you have to pay for your bills, and just like anything else, you're going to get paid a certain wage at Disney. And I'm not going to get into a discussion about wages or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is that you're not going to really be there to save, so to speak. If you're saving for your next semester of college, the college program is not really what you're supposed to be doing. This is like you're going to college, but it's an internship where you're learning some of the aspects of, the aspects of, business life at Walt Disney World, or as George put it, which I have to agree with, or adulting. And which I know that adulting is kind of a relatively new term, but let's face it, it's one of those things where you kind of have to do that. I know that when I was in college, I was fortunate enough that, my parents had a little bit of a fund for me in order to go to college. I still ran out of money after 2 years, but they did what they could, type of thing. I would love to have done the college program to at least get some additional experiences, but it just wasn't in the cards. I didn't know about it either. Just, you're talking about, you saw a flyer. I kind of have to chuckle at the whole idea of, you saw a flyer and you signed up because of a flyer instead of like seeing an email or a post on Facebook. It's just kind of funny.
No, and I mean, the biggest Disney fanatic, and I've always been that way, but I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was a thing. I was dancing, and Disney had a lot more restrictions than they did, now. Is I think, I don't know if they've gotten looser, but I mean, even the size 18 thing, they would not hire you if you were bigger. I mean, that was a huge thing back then. Like, there were cast members that, it was an issue for. So now that's not the case, but it was back then. So, I mean, it's changed a lot. It's interesting when I watch a podcast a while ago with a cast member or, a college program person, and
Sure.
it's changed so much. But it's fun to hear stories, of everyone's experience.
Absolutely. And I know that we have several people in our audience, both in the podcast audience as well as our live audience, that has experience as cast members in the college program, as well as cast members themselves. And by all means, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, every cast member, regardless if you're a part of the college program or have been there for Lord knows how long. I just want to say thanks, especially during this busy holiday season. It's definitely a very trying time for everybody. it could get extraordinarily busy. It can get extraordinarily crazy. Guests can be crazy too. And, by all means, thank you to, people such as yourself who have made magic for people, and for those that are currently making magic for guests that are there today. So as we kind of wrap up, Brandi, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you in social media realms, how they can get a hold of you, also for your services to help them plan their perfect Disney vacation.
You can find on WDW community page. Also, I have a Facebook page, which is it's pretty easy to find. If you look up Brandi at Mickey Adventures, you can find me. But it's facebook.com/Brandi Travel, Brandi. And then you could always email me at Brandi, Brandi at mickeyadventures.com and email me that way. Or just look up Brandi Constantine and you can find me. And, again, I don't charge fees. If you want to book a trip with me, you mentioned Behind the Ears, and I'll give you a gift card. If you have, maybe you're not traveling, but you have a friend who mentioned, oh, I might want to go on this cruise on whatever, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, just have them call me and then message me and say, Brandi, I sent this person to you, and I'll give you a gift card. So if they book. So it's something, there's a lot of travel agents out there. They're all, it's just depending on how much experience, I've had 20 years. I've been all over the world, Paris and Budapest and was so much more than Disney, Universal, I get trained on it regularly. So if you want to do a kind of like a half and half trip, I can do that too. So there's so much more than Disney, as well, but I can help with any of it. And
That is absolutely excellent. And I also want to say just thank you so much, obviously, for being a partner in the show. It has been absolutely a pleasure. Brandi, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and put you on our curious green room where you can go ahead and partake in our famous catering.
Thank you.
So I will talk to you in just a minute after the show. Thank you so much for
Thanks, Chris.
No problem. I'll see you in a bit. Everybody, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed that conversation with Brandi. And the thing is, it's nice to hear the stories from someone who has been there as a cast member, as a college program cast member, and also to hear some of the things that she does as a travel agent. And, the fact is that we know there's a lot of travel agents out there. There's a lot of great travel agents out there. And, the thing is that I have found personally that if you find a really solid travel agent, such as Brandi, who has many, many years of experience, not just doing Disney trips, but all sorts of trips, the fact of the matter is that not only can you book your Disney trip, you can book other trips, but also her experiences with Disney and non-Disney trips help her make a better agent in general. Just kind of keep that in mind. Give her a ring, so to speak, on Facebook. And especially if you have any questions, I'm sure she'll be more than happy to help you out with that. Well, I'll tell you what, our time once again has come to an end. I'm going to go ahead and press this button and I'll be right back. You heard the show and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home. All right, everybody. Thank you once again for joining us here at Behind Ears Podcast. Thank you so much. You know what? I know you've got a choice in podcasts, and you know what? There are a lot of great ones out there. We're glad that you have joined us here today for this particular episode. Don't forget to subscribe, no matter where you subscribe to get your podcast. You can never have too many great Disney podcasts in your playlist, because let's face it, we all bring something different to the podcasting table. So I'll tell you right now, I'm going to go ahead and get going. I've got a few things I got to take care of, but by all means, until we meet again, I hope everybody has an absolutely magical day. Take care.